Praise the Lord, everybody. I was a little off cue myself on that one, but bear with me. I had something else, but I'll get it if I need it. Basically, in our last meeting, I discussed that we're going to work on and share a teaching series called Fit Faith. And briefly, I shared with you that it means what fit faith means, and that much like starting the year off, most people want to start the year off getting fit physically. I'm challenging people to get fit in their faith as well. Amen. Because physical exercise can only do so much, but you need real exercised faith and strengthened faith. And so most people are get fit physically because they want people to see and look at them and notice how fit they are, how good they're looking, that they're losing weight, and that they're getting in better shape. And that's a wonderful thing, man. I applaud people who do that. But at the same time, I want you to understand, here's my question, what would people do if they could see your faith?
Right. Oh my. Right.
Would your faith look fit, or would it look, I ain't gonna talk about nobody. Right. I might fit in that category myself. Pray for me. So in the spirit of fitness, I want you to understand that basically everything that I'm going to speak on in this particular series is going to be along the lines of a fitness type theme. Are you ready?
Yes.
Amen.
Let's go. Turn with me to Matthew chapter 17, verses 14 through 19. Matthew 17, 14 through 19 is where we'll get our core text for today. And when you have it, just say amen.
Amen.
All right. Verse 14 says, when they came to the crowd, a man came up to Jesus, falling on his knees before him and saying, Lord, have mercy on my son, for he is a lunatic and very ill. For he often falls into the fire and often into the water. I brought him to your disciples, and they could not cure him. And Jesus answered and said, you unbelieving, perverted generation. My God, Jesus is rough on some people. How long shall I be with you? How long shall I put up with you? Bring him here to me. And Jesus rebuked him, and the demon came out of him, and the boy was cured at once. Wow. Then the disciples came to Jesus privately. Somebody say privately.
Privately.
Jesus, you rebuke me openly, but I got more decorum than you. I at least come to you privately. And said, why could we not drive it out? Why could we not drive it out? In honor of fitness, I want to share from the subject of Gainz. Somebody say Gainz. Gainz. And for those of you that don't know, in the fitness world, Gainz means progress. And in my research of Gainz, I discovered that it can be spelled with an S or a Z. Both mean pretty much the same thing, but since I'm the bastion of the ghetto, I preserve ghetto life and hood life. I chose to go with the Z because the Z speaks well of where I'm from. So we would put a Z on everything instead of an S. Pray for us, man, because I see sometimes from the hood perspective, forgive me. And so the Z has a little something extra on it. And anyway, gains happen when a person makes progress in their training. And anything that helps you make progress is considered gains. And gains can be the adding on of muscle or the adding of weight that will help you to add or build muscle. And on the flip side, gains can be, watch this, cutting back on something that helps you to improve somewhere else. Somebody say gains.
Gainz.
And it's all about how the individual views gains, and which means that if you're on a fitness regimen, you can customize your progress however you choose. And isn't it wonderful that when it comes down to something like physical progress, I can cut back or add when I want to. But I want you to understand that there comes a point in life, or even in your physical regimen, where you begin to plateau. We've all hit that plateau period in our physical fitness endeavors and everything. But the thing about Gainz is that when you begin to plateau, I encourage you just to tweak something here or tweak something there. Nothing drastic, just a little slight adjustment, and you're back on track. Somebody say back on track, back on track. And so in looking at how the physical world views Gainz, I want you to understand that there comes a point in our life that we must learn to what constitutes Gainz in the spiritual. And does the same principle apply in the spiritual as in the natural? And like I can say, you can customize Gainz how you want to in the natural, but when it comes down to the spiritual, you have to be specific. Right. Can't just basically adjust it here or adjust it there. There's some specific adjustments we got to do. And the reason why I'm asking this to you on how you look in the spirit is because most of us believe our faith looks like this. We think we're built up. We think we got muscle. We think we got abs, man. We think we can fit anything. We can wear anything in the spirit. But in reality, sometimes our faith actually looks like this.
Right. Oh, that's me.
Struggling with the weight. Think I can handle more than what I can actually handle.
He's back at it again. Got those loafers on.
Not properly outfitted in the faith. A lot of the times, that's what our faith actually looks like, and the enemy is doing surveillance on us. Videos are going viral in the enemy's kingdom on us, and the devil is laughing because we think that that's our faith is really, really fit, when in fact our faith is out of order. Poor technique, not properly outfitted. Not properly positioned, don't even know how to handle. You taking on more stuff than you can handle because you think you got the weight, you got the technique, you got the faith, you're properly outfitted for the assignment that you're on. But in reality, the enemy is making fun and laughing and taking surveillance and looking at you and saying, look at them, think they got something going on, when in reality they don't. Don't be Uncle Gainz. And so in our text, we have Jesus in three different life situations. We have concern, confliction, and a conundrum. Somebody say concern, confliction, and a conundrum. I told y'all I can put some alliterations in my message because most people don't think you haven't preached unless you got an alliteration in there. I put one in there, man. The Father who is concerned, the Son who is conflicted, and disciples who wrestle with a conundrum. All three people groups have their part in making the story very interesting. And for starters, the Father is concerned, and he's concerned, and he makes the critical mistake that most people make when we're concerned. He assumed too much. And without due diligence, he assumed that proximity produces power. When in fact, I want you to understand that, in other words, you don't get this thing from Jesus. You don't get it by just being around Jesus.
Right.
And the Father assumed that the disciples had on their life what Jesus had on his life just because they was hanging with Jesus.
All right, thank you, Lord.
Just because you own the premises, you have to understand that you're not necessarily getting what God has for you just by being here.
Right.
Oh my God, I appreciate the people shouting back at me. They'll make me want to preach. You got to understand that faith is not a social experiment.
All right, thank you.
Write that down, man. Somebody tweet that, please, or put that on Instagram or something. That faith is not a social experiment. I want you to understand something, that great faith does not come from hanging around the right person. Great faith don't come because somebody laid their hands on you. Great faith doesn't come because the right person speaks into your life. Great faith doesn't come because you have the right contacts in your phone, or you can text the right person, or pick up the phone and call the right person, or drop the right name. Great faith only comes through the layers and the levels that you're willing to walk through.
Right. Thank you, Lord.
You don't get this type of thing just by being here. And too often people show up and have the assumption that something great is going to happen in their life, and when what they assume goes unrealized, faith doesn't work. They go on feeling like this faith thing really don't work. And I want you to understand that the concern of the Father is at this moment. He's like, Jesus, I've been peeping your ministry from afar, and I see that you got something on your life, and it's good that you got faith, and it's good that you can exercise faith, and it's good that you can do what you do, but the problem is, Jesus, is only good when you do it. Why is it that nobody else around you got it? And I want you to understand that this is one of the biggest indictments on any leader. One of the biggest indictments on any leader is that when he's walking in, or she's walking in something that the people around them don't demonstrate. Pastor, you preach prosperity, but you're the only one prospering. Pastor, you're teaching good relationships, but your relationships are the only ones thriving. Everybody else around you, marriage is falling apart. Y'all ain't saying that. Pastor, you're teaching on victory, but you're the only one I see walking in it. Why is it that you are the only one demonstrating faith? Why is it that you are the only one walking in great faith? Why is it that you are the only one that can do what you do? Why is it that the people who say that they are called under your ministry and walking in your purpose can't do what you do? Amen. Jesus, what's up with your ministry, man? That's what the Father is saying, basically, essentially, and nobody else is getting results but you. And this caused Jesus to do something very interesting. Notice what he does. He doesn't even bother to answer the man. Y'all notice that in the text? Jesus didn't even bother to answer the man. And I asked the question, why, Jesus, don't you bother to answer this man who's hurling this accusation that your disciples can't do what you do? And what I began to understand is that sometimes you can't waste your time clapping back at folk who don't believe in what you do.
That's right.
That's right.
I'll give myself an offering for that. Praise God. When somebody's in their feelings, you can't allow them to pull you into their feelings. You can't allow them to get you into your feelings. You can't spend time clapping back at everybody who doubts you. You can't spend time clapping back at everybody who has something to say. You can't spend time wasting your time and your energy trying to prove that that's not me, that's not how it is. Let me show you who I really am. Jesus didn't even bother to answer the man. He's mature enough to know that people are always fickle in their faith, and you can't let a person's lack of faith make you feel like something's wrong with your faith. And
Thank you, Lord.
Jesus is like, look, fam, I'm not answering for what they did. I ain't tripping off of what they did. I'm not answering for nobody else's mistake. I'm not answering over someone else's issue. I'm not answering over how someone else who should know better ain't doing what they're supposed to be doing. I'm not giving any time, any interest, any of my attention to that. And part of what keeps us in nonsense is we're trying to make sense out of where someone else failed at.
Yeah. Right.
Amen.
We're trying to make sense of what someone else failed to do. And Jesus is like, nope, I trained them better.
That's right.
See, this is a lesson for some parents. When your kids are acting a fool and you know you taught them right.
Amen.
When your kids are disobedient and you know you did what you were supposed to do and you raised them right and you showed them what to do. Jesus is like, I trained them better. I've walked them through processes. I've shown them the right regimen to commit to. I've gone as far as I can go with them. I'll deal with them later. No, I'm not answering you.
Right.
Amen.
Oh, that was good. Give myself some keys on that. Glory be to God. Anyhow, the conflicted son, I'll save how Jesus answered for later, but when we look at the son, we'll notice something interesting as well. Both Jesus and the Father make a distinction between the conflicted son. We're going to have to do something with that. Between the conflicted son and matter of fact, I might be able to do something with it because it's only right there, but I'll deal with it later. And what we have to understand is that the conflicted son has something going on which indicates to us that we must be careful not to confuse the person for their problem.
Right. Yeah.
Thank you, Lord.
Let me cut that off. Am I still on? Okay, fantastic. Am I still got my key? Oh yeah, wonderful. You can't confuse the person for the problem. And I want you to understand that you got to look at people and understand that, yeah, I may have done some wrong stuff in my past. I may have said some wrong stuff. I may have looked at the wrong thing. The wrong thing may have come out of my mouth. The wrong thought may have come through my head. But I want you to understand that I'm not what I do. Yeah, don't judge me by my attitude right now. I'll be better later. Don't judge me by what I said to somebody. I'll do better the next time. You can't allow people to label you. You got to understand that you don't need people's labels. You need people's love.
Amen. Thank you, Lord.
Yeah. Amen.
And in this season, if you're going to diagnose someone into deliverance and discharge, you're going to have to know how to make proper distinction between their problem and them. Got to make proper distinction between the person and the problem. And the Father makes his distinction by pointing out to Jesus that his son was a lunatic and very ill. Now, I'm here to help you understand why this is important. This is important because according to the Koine Greek lexicon, a lunatic was someone that suffered from epileptic seizures, aka in their time, moon-strickenness. Why did they call it moon-strickenness? The reason they called it moon-strickenness is because most of the time the seizures and the most violent seizures happen at night. So when the Father comes to Jesus and says, my son is a lunatic and very ill, what he's indicating to Jesus is, Jesus, there's something going on with him that only happens at a certain time of the day. And what I need you to understand, Jesus, is that I know that there's something in him that's salvageable. There's something in him that can be fixed and taken care of because I've seen him have better days than nights. Have you ever felt like your days were better than your nights? No. Have you ever felt like there were times when you began to experience the goodness of God and the blessings of God and the favor of God at a particular time, but then when times change, I don't feel as favored. I don't feel as blessed. I don't feel as that God has done things for me. And we forget what God did in the most critical times of our lives. And so what this father is getting him to understand is that at some point in his life, he saw a glimpse of what his son could be. Yes, the other synoptic gospels indicate that the boy was deaf and dumb, but he still could at one point probably write. He still could have be without tremors. He could still have opportunities where he could display all of his cognitive functions. And the father is like, Jesus, I know that what he's going through can be fixed because I've seen him have better days. And I just came by to tell somebody who has a child or has anything in your life that's not functioning right now. At some point in your life, that thing functioned, it worked, it was on point, things were working out, and you've seen it have better days. And because you've seen it have better days, the better days are not over. The better moments are not over. The better opportunities are not over. It's not over for you. There's a time where you got to go through what you got to go through, but I'm here to tell you that that time is limited, and I decree and declare that everything that has had you bound, everything that has had you stopped up, everything that has had you blocked has been broken, and it is over. Look at somebody and say, it's over, baby, it's over. My times have changed. My seasons have changed. The new doors are opening up. Oh, I know that I have had some downtime, but it is over.
That's right. Yes.
Come on now.
So, Jesus makes his distinction. That's all right, bro. I appreciate you shouting me out. Jesus makes his distinction, watch this, with his rebuke. I can tell by the groaning that rebuke in our society is something that we wrestle with, is something that we struggle with. And he rebuked the boy, but not the spirit behind the affliction. And I asked myself, Jesus, why did you rebuke the boy and not his affliction? I got a problem with that.
Right.
The affliction is the thing that need to be rebuked, Jesus. Why are you rebuking the boy? Then it dawned on me that we live in a society where rebuke has gotten a bad rep. We're so careful not to offend anybody. Our context has demanded that we maneuver around correction. But here's what happens when you maneuver around correction. When you maneuver around correction, you never really deal with the real problem. But Jesus understood that to correct the thing that's that's occupying a certain space, oh my God, and to correct the thing and leave and deal with what's incorrect will help you to understand that correction and incorrection can't occupy the same space. So he rebuked the boy, and the spirit left, because you can't have what's right occupying the same space as what's wrong.
Right. Thank you, Lord.
Something has to give. So when the boy was rebuked, his spirit surrendered to God, which allowed the wrong thing that was in his life to be easily chased away.
All right. Thank you, Lord. All right.
And so we have to understand, my prayer is that we become a people that let go of our preferences so that Jesus can deal with the things in our lives. And if Jesus is going to rebuke me and get what's incorrect out of my life, then so be it. I need to be rebuked. I want to be corrected when I'm wrong. I don't want to go around acting like I'm right when I'm out of order. I don't want, Lord, show me everything in me that's not like you. Show me everything in me that can't help me. Show me everything in me that's hindering me and keeping me from the flow of blessing and favor on my life. Rebuke me, Jesus.
Amen. Yes, that's right. Yes.
I like Jesus because Jesus is the only one who can get away with stuff. He made a mud pie, spit on it, and put it in a dude's eye and got away with it.
That's right. That's right.
Jesus called a woman a dog and she got blessed.
Amen.
Correction will get you blessed if you let it, but if you're disobedient and don't want to be corrected, stay bound in.
All right.
That's right.
Lord.
I can say that this is Forward Life Church. And so the conundrum, let me spend the rest of our time sorting out this conundrum, and I'm almost done because I'm boring you to death. The conundrum of the disciples, like I said earlier, Jesus didn't bother to answer the Father's questions about his disciples, but he did answer with a question to his disciples. He didn't bother to answer the Father's question about his disciples, but he did answer with a question to his disciples. He said, "How long shall I be with you? How long shall I put up with you?" And I don't know what Jesus was thinking, but I want you to understand that Jesus is basically questioning something very, very critical here. When they couldn't answer Jesus, he said, watch this, bring him here to me.
All right.
Jesus corrects them by asking, how long shall I be with you? How long shall I put up with you? It was like, Jesus, I don't know, man. You mind telling us? I know we've been rolling with you all this time, and we should pick up on how you do things, but I don't always understand how you flow. And can you tell me why you should continue with us, and why you should put up with us? Jesus said, man, bring him to me. Now watch this, because it's interesting. They brought the boy to Jesus. Jesus dealt with the problem. You would think end of story, right? They brought the boy to Jesus. Jesus deals with the problem. But what I find interesting is Jesus appears to be teaching them something. And what he's teaching them here is, by bringing the boy to me, you've already learned how to handle the thing that's bothering you.
All right.
Wow.
Makes sense.
You brought him to me, and you're already learning, and you already have the ability to handle the thing that's whipping you. And the problem was their faith. It wasn't the boy. The problem wasn't the boy. The problem wasn't the demon. The problem was their faith to take the next step.
All
That's
right.
right.
Thank you, Lord.
That's right. Right.
I wish I had a towel right about now. I would have slapped myself on the back. God told me to tell somebody that what you're facing right now, what you're facing and what you need to do to get the next step is no bigger than the things you're already handling.
Man.
It just requires you to take the next step in what you're already handling so that you can get the victory out of. See, we want more. Give me this and give me that. But when the rubber meets the road, we're not really sure about whether or not we want the thing that we've asked God for. But I'm here to tell you that the next thing that comes your way, the next thing that looks insurmountable, the next thing that looks challenging, the next thing that looks difficult, the next thing that looks crazy, you just got to understand that I've already handled things to this stage, and all I got to do is take the next step. Look at somebody and say, take the next step, baby. Don't you back up off of it. Don't you get out of the door. Don't you quit. Don't you give up. Take the next step. The next step just requires you to have just a little bit more faith.
Watch out.
That's right. That's right.
Than what you're already equipped to handle.
Yes.
And I'm done almost with my introduction. And so what we have to understand is Jesus is trying to get them to become high capacity leaders.
Right.
And Jesus is trying to get them to a place where they become high capacity people. There's a trigger for somebody in the room, high capacity. Part of being a high capacity person requires you to seek out solutions to problems. And notice that Jesus took care of the problem, and then the scene changes. We'll get that figured out one day.
Line in.
Hey.
Bluetooth connected.
The scene changes. And how do we know the scene changed? In verse 19 it says, then the disciples came to Jesus in private and asked, why couldn't we drive it out? And this changing of the scene indicates that he wasn't going to just give them the answer to their problem. And sometimes that's what we want. We want him to just give us the answers to our problem. But let me close by giving you the lesson and the revelation. Here it is. Jesus corrected the problem, but he expected them to seek out the solution.
Thank you, Lord.
Jesus corrects the problem, deals with the problem, and then go and say nothing else to them about the problem, because he's tired of always trying to instruct them on things by him initiating the instruction. And sometimes the reason why we're in the dark and we're dealing with things and we don't know why we're dealing with them is because God isn't just going to give us the answers. He wants us to walk up and get in our prayer life, get on our knees and seek him and ask him, Lord, why is it that I couldn't do this? Why is it that this bothered me? Why is it that that happened to me? Why is it that my situation is shifting on me?
Right. That's
Thank
right.
you, Jesus.
And there comes a point where you have to inquire about your own faith deficiencies.
That's
Thank
right.
you, Lord.
That's right.
Amen.
I have to understand that the revelation here is, why is this important? Prior to this incident, the reason this is important, prior to this incident with the demon-possessed boy, Jesus had taken Peter, James, and John on the Mount of Transfiguration. And so they've ascended with him to a higher level, and they've left the remaining 9 at the last level Jesus vacated. And the reason why this is important, ladies and gentlemen, is because what it speaks to is the fact that in order for Jesus to ascend to his next level in glory, he expected them to operate at the level he last lived at in faith.
All right. Thank you, Lord.
But because they wasn't operating in faith at the last level that he vacated, he's frustrated because he's like, how long shall I be with you?
Right. Right.
This requires us to do an investigation. And remember, what we have to understand is that what this tells us is that any time that we don't see Jesus at the level we need to see Jesus, our faith is going to function at a level that it can't function at.
All right. Thank you, Lord.
A level that doesn't produce, a level that doesn't uplift, a level that doesn't exalt, a level that doesn't strengthen.
Thank you.
How long shall I be with you? How long shall I continue in this way? How long are you going to continue to live and operate at a faith level that's beneath what I've set you on?
Thank you, Lord. Thank you, Lord.
I vacated that level as a precursor to show you what's to come. And what is to come is you're going to have to get your faith to where it needs to be.
Amen.
I've entrusted an assignment on your life. I've entrusted purpose on your life. I've given you destiny. I've given you promise. And I've done everything that I can possibly do. It's time for you to gain the level of faith you need to gain so that you can fulfill the assignment on your life.
Amen.
I just want to encourage somebody today. Allow this thing to work in you. Allow this thing to marinate and allow this thing to build you up. Allow this thing to, this fit faith thing to work some things out in you so you could be strengthened, so that you could be poured in, so that you could be uplifted, so that you could be exalted in due time and due season. Give God some glory. I want you to feel something today. I got a declaration here. If you can see it, I don't know if you can see it or not. But this is the declaration for the year. If you can see it, say amen.
Amen.
If you can't see it, say nothing. We're going to declare and decree this declaration. And we're going to do it together. You ready?
Ready.
Can you see it?
Amen.
All right. It says, this year
This year.
will be a year of fresh starts, new beginnings, do-overs, and recovery. We will possess a love for God more than ever. We will pray, witness, and help others. We will have unprecedented momentum and build winning teams. We will see change, growth, expansion, access, and ownership. Wealth transfer will not just come in money, but in opportunities and relationships. We will break free from every self-imposed limitation. We will have permission to proceed where we have been previously denied. Move forward, move forward, move forward. You believe that? Clap your hands.